up, and I'll just say something about him because many years ago I met this man on a trail somewhere, I can't remember where, and he had a conversation with me saying, I'm not stealing your thunder, Beth, saying that he was thinking of climbing up Kilimanjaro in this wheelchair. Well, about a year later, a group of us from here, 7 of us from here, went and did Kilimanjaro. And there's a wall there on the one route we want. It's called the Barranco Wall.
Yeah.
Sort of straight up rock for, I don't know, 800 feet. And I was thinking of this guy who had talked about climbing, and I thought, how the hell can anybody even dream of climbing up it? So I just talked to him a minute or so ago, well, half an hour ago, and it's still on his radar screen. So maybe he's going to talk about it. Anyway, so, yeah, sorry.
I was asked to introduce him because we know each other quite well. We're both on the LARPD Board of Directors. And so Bob does that in addition to many, many other things. He's definitely an advocate for getting everybody outdoors, getting kids outdoors, and making the way for disabled people to get outdoors. And he's a marvelous hiker. He goes all kinds of places that I certainly have never been and can't go at this point, but Bob can. And so I would like to introduce Bob Coomber.
Thanks so much, Beth. I really want to appreciate that Pete Paulson invited me to make this talk and then fled to Costa Rica. And thanks, Beth, for the kindness there. I am an LARPD board member, which is just one of the many things I do, and I got interested in that because I'm a hiker first, a disabled hiker second. I get out a lot. There are some of you who know me from meeting me on trails, and my middle name is Bob. How the hell did you get here, Coomber? That happens a lot when I'm going up Mount Diablo and run across groups of people. I've been a member of the California Outdoors Hall of Fame. Yes, there is such a thing. Since 2007, and I got kindness from the Bush administration many years ago when I got a President's Council on Physical Fitness Community Leadership Award back in 2008. A lot of it has to do with, I have a pretty positive outlook on things, and I think that takes kind of a key to getting things done. When I first got injured, and I'm a juvenile diabetic, this always comes up, so I'm going to start with it. I'm a juvenile diabetic, which caused some bone damage, some structural damage, and I kept breaking bones. After about the 7th one, my orthopedist and I decided that we should probably figure a better way to get around than keep trying to go over rocks with legs that keep breaking when I put them on the ground. This seemed to be a pretty good thing. And it wasn't always as successful as it is now in terms of my more and more public success. The newspaper article, like the latest one, Tom Steenstra's annual, I call it, he calls me and I want to get this Outdoor Writers Award again this year, and I figured that you could get me in another one this year, so we'll do one at the end of the year. And I have no idea, then I don't hear from him for the next year until we get out there and do something again. But when I first got in the chair, I didn't know what to make of it, honestly. Because I kept finding that people had restricted themselves to their homes once some kind of medical adversity came upon them, whether it happened through illness, through, like me, step on the ground, break ankle. It was just a normal thing. I have so much metal in my legs now, it's kind of cool to go to airports just for the heck of it. Whether I'm going on a flight or not, it's just really slick to go through the metal detector. Keeps them busy. But I found out when I lived in Hayward at the time, and I'll tell you a little about how I moved to Livermore too. I've been in Livermore for 25 years this year. It started because the East Bay, alongside the bay, started getting more people. And it was harder for me to get up to the mountains. It would add another hour just to get to Tracy, just to get out of Oakland on a Friday night. I said, if I can get about an hour closer to the hills. So and then I found out I got out here and realized that, God, you can have a pretty good time to stay in town around here. We got Morgan Territory and Del Val, and we got the wineries, we have the olive orchards, we have people like yourselves who are the backbone of the community, honestly. There are groups, I get invited to speak with a lot of different kinds of groups, and some of them I don't hear about too much other than an annual meeting or so, and I kind of call them the biceps of the community, right? The things that you see, you can really show them off, but after all that, you realize if you're a walker, it isn't the biceps doing anything. They look good on a calendar or something like that, but it's the backbone that carries the body. And Rotary is a backbone of the community. Rotary is what keeps it going. I know enough of you here to know that how involved you are and how deeply you're involved in the community, and I applaud you all for that. And I speak at Rotary Club whenever I'm asked. I'm 100% down with any time that Rotary wants me to speak for anything. But lest I digress further, I became a hiker because I've always been a hiker. And when I got in a wheelchair, it was a matter of finding a way to do what I want to do. And there was hike. Well, how do you do that in a wheelchair? There isn't a book on it. It's been suggested that I write one. It takes away from my hiking time to do that, so I get articles and things, I get little things out, but putting a book together is a struggle for me, one day. But it just came with pushing. I got out in Hayward on a sidewalk one day because I was tired of sitting around with 2 legs and casts waiting for everything to heal, and I just started pushing down the street. And I realized that as long as you keep pushing, the chair will keep moving. That's the first tenet in what I tend to do is keep pushing it, and it's going to keep moving. You get to a steep hill, you go as far as you go, you turn around. If you can't push it any farther up than you did, then I realized that the motor had to be good. Your body had to be in good shape. As a juvenile diabetic, when I first got in the chair, I was a wreck. We didn't have things like finding your own blood sugar. I have an insulin pump. I have all these things now that we didn't have 40 years ago. And it was a struggle to get over keeping your blood sugar in line when you had no idea where it was at any given time, other than that once time every 6 months that you went to see your doctor. And then you found out a week later after hitting the lab, all that fun stuff. Well, now I can check it myself any given time and make the adjustments and get in better shape. But I had an episode in 1986 that was kind of, before I was even in the chair, that changed my life, and that was when I went into a diabetic coma in a real bad state back then. And when I awoke the 3rd day in the hospital, and my 3-year-old daughter is sitting next to my bed, just happy to see me awake, I remember that they got me out of bed. Now, I'm 6'2", I don't look like it anymore. I used to be a basketball player. I have a lousy jump shot anymore, I'll tell you that. But I'm 6'2", and they got me out of bed and weighed me as 121 pounds, if you can imagine that. So I was in kind of scarecrow mode. And we got real serious about dieting and getting in better shape and things that I needed to do if I wanted to make it to 35. So it was a tough time, but just given my attitude, I can come off with a barrage of one-liners at any given time. Director Wilson knows a little about that, probably sitting next to me at meetings. And I just kept kind of chiding myself. I would celebrate every 5 pounds that I gained back. And I remember when I hit 165, it was just like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? By that time, I was back in the wheelchair and had started pushing myself around. But I realized, back to that hill, there used to be a hill in Hayward at Guerin Regional Park that I used to go up as far as I could every day while I was still off work. And I started getting into the gym, getting weights, working everything out, realizing what was going to work to make me go farther and to make whatever, I couldn't even call them dreams back there. They were kind of vapors, thinking about getting back into the mountains again. They were just thoughts in the back of my head. Then I started buying wheelchairs after I started breaking them on trails. Folding chairs don't survive real long when you're out on trails out in the backcountry. They twist, they flex. Ask me how I know. Well, I'll tell you. I was up in Morgan Territory one day about just enjoying myself, had found an old wheelchair, had stripped off the side panels, had taken off the leg, the pads and things, and put some knobbies on it. And this is probably the 10th time I had taken this chair out of this particular trail, and I got really bold this day. I was on an 8-mile loop that I was going to do for the first time, and I was halfway out, and the chair flexed once too many times, and the cross member down below, which holds the chair together, broke, just sheared. So I, fortunately, had a little foresight to put in my day pack a small piece of cord, wrapped it around the chair, wrapped it around my waist, pushed myself 4 miles back on my butt, dragging this chair behind me. You know? And if you want to, you know, if you got to do it, you got to find a way. So, but you learn these things this way. I have a lot of ask me how I know moments. Ask me how I know that if you don't turn your chair around and pull it up a steep section of the hill, if you go forward, you will go over backwards. It's another one of those moments. I still do that. I still don't recognize this hill's too steep. And when you're walking it, you don't see these little nuances in the angle of the hill. You think of a hill as it's just one big hill. Well, I see it as a hill that goes like this, and then there's 6 feet of really steep stuff that will really dump you any number of ways if you allow it to. So I learned to turn my chair around and row over these things, just a rowing motion and dragging my feet down there. And really, ultimately, the worst moments, not worst, the most challenging moments are when I had to actually get out of the chair, get on the ground, put the frame beneath my shoulder blades, and just push the whole thing up over whatever the rock or obstacle is. But that's kind of the attitude you have to take if you're silly enough to be in a wheelchair and want to go out and climb 14,000-foot mountains. I've got 2 of them under my belt. I've got White Mountain, which is in the ancient bristlecone pine forest east of Bishop, and I've got Mount Langley, which is 200 feet shorter than White Mountain, but it's got it's anything with sand on, okay? I don't do beaches for a reason. Sand is just the bane of wheelchair hiking, and I may be the only one out there, but I tell you, it is a bane. I love that word, by the way. It's just, you know, there's a lot of banes out there. Mountain lions are banes. Bears are fun. Bears are fun. There's Yosemite backcountry rangers that found me one night out there. They were camping with me on the east side of the park, and a bear came into camp, and we had food secured and everything like that. And who gets out of their tent at 2 in the morning and jumps in his wheelchair and starts chasing the bear off? I mean, why not? What the heck? There's nothing else to do. I mean, since then, the legend of me arm wrestling bears and taking all their money, and that's why they break into cars in Yosemite Valley to steal food, they're not true. But I enjoy the outdoors. One of the biggest parts of my recovery was getting outside to see animals, to examine plants and watch trees grow, and know that you can roll out to the middle of a field on your very worst day and sit and just listen to what's going on in the wind, listen to the crickets, and if there's nothing going on a beautiful day like today when there's been rain, you can almost hear the grass grow. Your level of concentration gets to that point where you see things growing and moving and fluttering around you, and you just want to find out more. But there's no better release from day-to-day stuff than being out in a place as far from the madding crowd as possible and find out just what you're capable of doing. Now, I've done some things that the Chronicle covers a lot of things. The Chronicle, I can always tell, I'll tell you this, at the last quarter of every year, when news seems to be at a premium, the Chronicle is always looking for a good human interest story. So in the last few years, they've had a few of them on me, and one of them was doing the Diablo Regional Trail, which goes from Round Valley Regional Preserve up through Morgan Territory Regional Preserve, over Mount Diablo, and ends up in Walnut Creek at Castle Rock, and eventually over in Briones. Well, I did that over the course of 4 days. It's a very cool, if any of you are into casual backpacking, there are backpack camps at Morgan Territory, at Round Valley, and of course there's camping at Mount Diablo. Took advantage of all those 3, and it is just a superb way to sit in our backyard and enjoy it as if you're out 100 miles from anything. The Round Valley camp, nobody knows where it is. It's not hard to find, but nobody seeks it out. Nobody knows it's there. But for a great overnighter, just a hike in, a quick 2-3 miles in, sit there. The birds out there at night are incredible. It's just so fun to listen to great horned owls and things. And I always go off on tangents when I'm talking about things I find outdoors. You know, our rangers over at Sycamore Grove are fantastic. They know that if I see a rattlesnake over there, I'm liable to go and try and pick it up. That's just what I've done for years. I love animals. I love watching the hawks fly around over there. But again, I can sit out in the middle over there and just let everything go. Work, the laundry's in the dryer, I'm good to go. I will find a place off a little single track trail and just set up. It's nice to have your own chair sometimes. You don't have to worry about sitting in the mud or the grass. Bring a chair. I always bring a chair. I don't mind waiting in line behind that lady with the 2 shopping carts in there. I take a nap. It's really simple. It's not a big deal to me. But I just determined that once you get all this stuff in mind, you get a plan together for how you're going to make it happen. One of it was getting in shape, and then really, really building up my body. And I surprise a lot of people going to the gym, because I will still go over now and then, and I can still bench about 270. And I look like a scrawny old, whatever. But I honestly will arm wrestle just about anything and surprise a lot of people. I have fun with that kind of thing. But if you're going to do this kind of stuff, you better be strong enough to get up those hills. If you're going to get out in the middle of nowhere, you better know that you have a way to get back. So endurance is a big thing for me, and challenging myself. Anybody else in this room take a wheelchair in the inaugural Livermore Half Marathon the other day? I didn't see it, so don't lie, I want to know. I was, actually, it's really cool to do an event like that, because I was the only wheelchair in it, so when it comes to the first wheelchair class, I could be last place, and I'm in first place, What could be better than that? I do the same thing bridge to bridge every year when I do, but I do a lot of these runs and races and things, and it's a payoff. It's kind of gauging what you're doing. Is all that work in the gym, does it mean anything? Is it going anywhere? And yeah, I'm looking at marathons now in the fall. After, my other signature hike will be this summer when we are finally going to complete. I don't know if any of you read in the local paper last summer, I did a failed venture to get over the Sierras, started the east side of the Sierras in a place called Onion Valley, go over a 12,000-foot pass, and then end up in Kings Canyon National Park. Well, we're going to do it this year. My insulin pump decided to balk at me at about 10,000 feet. And as my blood sugar elevated, we realized this is not a safe thing to go any further and tempt fate. So we turned around, and I take a good crew with me. I had a documentary filmmaker with me. I had one of our local firemen, LPFD's finest, Matt Thau. He and I have the 24 hours on the track at Relay for Life. Do we have relayers in the room? Anybody Relay for Life? Livermore Relay for Life? We'll have to see you out there. It'll be in June. But Matt and I stay the entire time out on the track, the entire time of the event. We stop for bathroom breaks, yes, but and eat a little bit along the way. But 24 hours all day, doesn't matter what the weather is, we're out there. We're both families of cancer survivors, and we support them, and that's the best way we can support them. Like my first year out there was a lot of fun. Because you learn a lot of tricks when you're in a wheelchair. You learn a lot of things out there that you don't learn when you're walking, like wheelies. Any other wheelers? No. Okay. Well, wheelies are cool, but they're especially cool as fundraisers when the people who are supporting you don't know how much they're going to be raising. I was going down the track at my first relay, and I just hit the wheels, and put the wheels up in the air just for the heck of it, take the weight off my ankles a little bit. And his voice comes up behind me and goes, "I'll give you 20 bucks if you can do that once around the track." I said, "Will you give me 20 bucks for every lap I can do it?" 16 laps later, 4 miles. So he pretty much made most of my goal for that year for relay. And I haven't seen him since. So I don't know, I picked another relay, but yeah, I'm the ringer over there, so when he wants somebody to race or whatever. But I get my 50 miles in there. I regularly do long hikes. I like to go down to Pleasanton and back. They go to Pleasanton for breakfast, down the bikeway and all our regional trails that we have here, the city and LARPD trails that we have, the South Livermore Trail System. I love to get out there and just get mileage in. Sometimes just, you don't really feel real good. How far do you want to go? I don't know. I've gone from Livermore to Concord and back in a day. That's 70 miles. Start in the dark and you finish in the dark. But it doesn't matter. You prepare for it. You bring a headlamp. You bring lots of water. You know that in Danville, on the Iron Horse Trail, 100 feet from the trail, there's a Pete's. You're all set. You're caffeinated. You got everything you need. What else do you want? So my life has been pretty cool even since I've been in the chair, I'll say. CBS News and I did a piece at Brushy Peak Regional Park a few years back, and New Yorkers came out here. And I love New Yorkers that aren't used to the West. So I made up a few things for the guys to ponder while we were hiking out there. And one of them was the guy's asking me before we got started. He was the weatherman for the CBS early show at the time. And I said, "Well, are we going to see like wild animals and everything?" I said, "Well, you probably won't see bears or anything." He said, "Well, But what you have to watch out for here in the spring in Livermore, and this doesn't happen outside of our area much, is the flying rattlesnakes. And you probably don't have them back in New York, but we're going to be walking under some trees up there. And if I were you, I would just pay attention to what's above you when we're walking. Well, next thing I know, he hopped in the Jeep and rode to the top of the ridge while he left me and the cameraman up there to the top. But probably my best public line ever that ever made it on TV was when he asked me in his earnest thing. I told him, I said, if you put any sappy violin music along my, this story about me in here, I said, I'm going to come to New York and look for you. So we're going to have talks. But he sat on a log, and we're sitting on this whole retrospective thing. We're really looking at the inner Bob here. He goes, Bob, I saw you coming up that hill. I saw the pain in your face. I said, why do you do this to yourself? Why do you keep putting yourself through this pain and this agony? And I said, because I suck at board games. I had to do something. And he lost it, and we had a great time with that. But we did the same thing. I had ABC News out here a few years ago on Mount Diablo and had a pretty good time with them too. But they're not used to seeing guys in wheelchairs. Most people aren't. And it's all about what you want to accomplish. What do you want to get done in this life? And if that's a passion of yours, follow those passions, If the job, the work you've taken on is your passion, then do it. Give it everything you got, Give it the four-wheel Bob shot, Go to the gym and lift a few calculators or whatever it is that you're working with, Whatever you have to do to make yourself successful. Because I have a pretty good time at doing what I'm doing, and it doesn't pay me at all. I know if I'm out there right now, I could get a salad right next to the trail. I mean, there's stuff out there you can eat right off the trail if you wish. And knowing these things and learning these things and being out among it all and wondering if a mountain lion, no, I try not to think about that. Wondering how the day is going to end up. And you'll have a good sleep, that good kind of sleep when you're a little sore because you really pushed it real hard to go from a 700-foot platform to a 3,800-foot summit, then that's a good day. Most of all, you reaffirm that you can do this stuff. You put yourself into this position where once you're out there for a couple hours, you got to do this stuff. You're right in the middle of it all. You don't have any other option. And I've kind of dealt that way in my own career too, working for banks and collections, things like that. You have very aggressive forecasts that you have to make, and we'd always exceed them. We'd always exceed them because I never let my people think that they couldn't do something. Oh, I can't talk to this one again. We just got her up to date last month and she's already blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, get her up to date again. What are you going to do? Just get her on the phone. First thing first. Get her going. And you have to just come up with these adaptive strategies along the way. Not everything is always going to work the same way every time. There's trails that I've bailed out on that I've done a zillion times and have then gone 200 yards and just didn't have it in me that day. Went home, cussing myself all the way back, and first thing the next morning I was out there again. You better believe I got it done. And it was all about knowing what you have to do. What are you willing to put into it? What are you willing to give? I've gotten to the point now, I was away from the gym for a couple of years after I lost a job and just getting back into work again, got into a gym. So I've gotten back an old tricep press, pushing down. My standard is 325, that I can do, push 325 pounds down. That's your engine. That's how you get up the hill. Working on your forearms, because if you ever had to come down from Mount Diablo, using your hands as brakes, there's no brakes on this sucker. I put these big gloves on here, and you can smell things burning in there. I think it's like there's bacon going on. You better not let your gloves wear out. You'll be a long ride down there. So I am just having a heck of a time out here every day. I get out in the morning, go to a park, talk to my white-breasted nuthatches out at Veterans Park and the red-shouldered hawks that fly over and chirp at me all the time. Listening to that stuff is what gets me going. And I'll go as far as I need to be able to continue doing this stuff. Kilimanjaro, yeah, it's on the radar. It's a matter of priorities right now. We take care of a couple of kids that we've managed to foster for a few years and get them through school and do some things, and they come first right now, along with my granddaughter, who's my 2-year-old granddaughter, who can tell you the difference between a blue jay and a red-shouldered hawk. She hangs out with Grandpa once a week, and we get to go hiking all the time. We're always out there on trails. She lives up in Kotati, and they got some great creek trails up there. So, well, where are we time-wise here, Beth?
But you're right on time to end.
Oh, you know what, I have an innate sense of these things. Because I will talk forever. So thank you so much. If there are any questions or anything, I'd love to.
That was fabulous. Two questions. One is, how fast do you go on the flat when you're just hiking to Concord? And the other is, where do you get your chair?
The chairs, that's good. Those are great questions. Chairs have the regular household chairs, I call this one. The front wheels don't go more than 4 or 5 miles an hour. They wobble. They go into this flutter thing. So if I'm on a real long hike, I'll tighten them down from the top so they don't move at all. So I can go 7, 8 miles an hour. If I had a racing chair, I'd be dangerous. If I had a hand cycle, have you ever seen a hand cycle where you know? If I had a hand cycle, I told the guy who wanted to sell me a hand cycle a couple of months ago at the LA Abilities Expo that if I tried it out outside the building, I'd probably call them from Salt Lake City. Because it would, God, 37 gears in this thing? I mean, yeah, you know, I'm there, you know, it'd be fun, so.
Do you have a motorized chair at all?
No.
No.
I really, really, really am gonna put that off till the very last second, because right now I can still push myself, and that's what keeps me going. I keep in shape. You know, I haven't been on anybody's calendars or centerfolds at all, but I'll tell you what, you'd be surprised, yeah.
Well, we hike a lot in the East Bay Regional Parks, and there are lots and lots of trails, some of which I'm sure are not wheelchair compatible. In fact, I'm not even sure they're compatible for me, but that's another issue. Do you know ahead of time which trails you must have a minimum clearance, and do you know ahead of time which trails are appropriate or not?
Yeah, pretty much. I've hiked trails in all 58 of the East Bay Regional Parks, most of the trails. If it's narrower than 22 inches, it's a stretch. I don't like to get into situations where it may go from 24 inches wide to 8 inches wide, and I have to turn around in a space with a 500-foot drop-off in front of me. Those are the kinds of things. I'm good at it. I've done it. I don't like to do it. It's one of those things, you know, don't sneeze. Don't sneeze now, okay? Just turn around and go the other way. But yeah, I pretty much know. I tend to stick to the wider trails, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, we've had to skip some announcements because of the time crunch, but there's one honor to one of our members that needs to be recognized. Steve McDonough, would you please stand up? Ladies and gentlemen,